Female Fluence. We are a place of women empowering women. This is a safe environment where females are not judged nor afraid to flourish. My goal is to help you live an energized life of balance, whether as a mom, a wife, or in your profession. It is time to have self-worth and self-compassion. Live in the present moment and surround yourself with only healthy connections. So join me, Pearl Shua, a woman empowerment life coach, an educator, and a mother of 3, to help take you on a journey of true identity and inspiration. Female rivalry often occurs when a woman uses her power to keep undermining, mistreating, or unfairly competing with another woman. Unfortunately, as women, we often internalize these experiences and blame ourselves. However, it is essential for us to adopt a lift as we climb mindset. This is a perfect articulation of our desire as women to ascend individually in the quest for gender equality, while also turning around to leave the door open and make the climb a bit less steep for the woman who is following in our footsteps. In our patriarchal society, there has been a long history of internalized sexism that has led many women to see each other as competitors fighting for a single seat in positions of power. Why do we limit ourselves to this hyper-competitive perspective? To be clear, there is nothing wrong with a bit of friendly competition or striving to do your best, but there is something wrong with viewing other women as your rivals. It's time to break the cycle of woman against woman and embrace collaboration over competition instead. I'm delighted to welcome our guest today, who will graciously enlighten us about her captivating new book, Collaborative Confidence. Dr. Heather Backstrom is an accomplished executive coach, facilitator, and speaker. As an expert on women's leadership, she's passionate about empowering women's voices, presence, and impact. She created Collaborative Confidence as an enduring bond between women that propels them forward together. She has a master's in human resources from Chapman University and a doctorate in organizational leadership from Pepperdine University. Hi, Dr. Backstrom. Welcome to my podcast. It's such a great privilege to have you here today.
Oh, Pearl, thank you. Listen, it's my privilege. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. And I thank you for the opportunity for us to talk and explore women's leadership and be in conversation with each other.
I'm so happy. Okay, so we're going to start off with talking about your transition in your career. How did you go about from being in human resources and then all of a sudden shifting being into an executive coach? Was that, it must have taken a lot of courage, when we make that shift in our profession. How did you go about doing that?
Sure. Yeah. Interesting, Pearl. It was a combination of that, the dimmer switch where it took a long time. And then finally when it happened, it was a light switch that was immediate. And the shortest version of this story I think I can tell is that, yes, I come out of corporate human resources, liked working in HR for a long time. And then there became a point where I was much more interested in human development and team development and individual, aspirations, and less interested in the HR type of work that I was doing, which was performance-based and layoffs and, employee relations, that type of work. So along the way, I knew I wanted to become a coach at some point. So as you mentioned, I got my doctorate. I also became certified as a coach, and I did a number of other things to, prepare myself. And in this preparation, many, many years went by, and I was still working in human resources. And with each passing year, I found myself, the enjoyment of HR was just going down and down and down, where the desire to do this human-centric work kept rising. So I finally got to a point where I was just absolutely depleted. And I guess the universe intervened because I made a mistake at work. And I admitted the mistake. And listen, we all make mistakes. I did not hide from it. And then I got one of those written warnings that I had written for so many people over the years. So I get this written warning. That was the light switch moment. That was after all these years of preparation. I finally said to myself, Heather, you know what you want to do. You don't want to lie on your deathbed and have regrets about not even trying, because at least if you try and you fail, you've tried. And so I quit my human resources job with no clients lined up, no plan, no strategy.
Wow.
I just started. Yeah. So that was coming up on 9 years ago. That experience was about 9 years ago at this point.
So you needed that push. It was like you knew it internally that you needed to make that shift, but it's like it takes a lot of courage to do that because we it's so much easier to be in this comfort state, right? Of doing exactly what you've been doing and what you're comfortable with versus making that attempt to kind of going for something bigger that you think you really need. So that's impressive.
Exactly. Or that comfort of knowing exactly where you're going next. So having that client lined up or having that job lined up. I didn't have either of those. So, but the pain at that point in my life, the pain of staying where I was too much. And the fear of the fear in front of me didn't stop me. The pain was too big to overcome that fear. So yeah, I jumped. I like to say I jumped into an empty swimming pool.
I mean, that's very inspirational because we all have that moment where we're kind of not comfortable and not happy and we feel like our work is not aligned with us. Mm-hmm. So that's inspiring for me to hear. Now, your book is called Collaborative Confidence, which I have right here. Great book.
Oh, thank you.
What does this title mean? Can you talk more about that?
Sure. So I coined the term collaborative confidence. And what it means is I am responsible for my own confidence and I'm responsible for helping other women with their confidence. So there's this reciprocity, this mutual support. I'm not out there all alone. I have other women who are championing me and my confidence, and I am graciously and generously and abundantly doing it for other women. So that's what collaborative confidence means. And it came from my observation of the women I was coaching and even the observation of myself. I was coaching these incredible women who were accomplished and smart and intelligent and had good relationships with people at work and so forth. And yet they kept doubting themselves and their confidence. I could see, and we would talk in coaching sessions about their doubt of their confidence. And then I was thinking about, well, women really like to be in relationship with each other. You know, we like to be connected. We like support. We like to give it and give it. So those two ideas came together, confidence and that relationship support, collaboration, and came together as collaborative confidence.
I think that's great. The title says it all. And the book, how you took all these different stories and put it together and teach us so many different techniques, whether we want to be a leader or just regular day to day, it's really important for us to know these techniques. So I really enjoyed reading it. Now, as you stated, when women engage in collaborative confidence, they are naturally truer to themselves and help other women to do the same. Can you talk about your 3 pillars of collaborative confidence, which is activate, amplify, accelerate? Explain what those mean. And also there was 2 significant stories in your book. One was related to the Obama White House administration story. And the other one was Girl Scouts that really showed woman amplifying woman. Can you share those with us?
Absolutely. I adore those stories. So yes, I definitely want to share them with everyone. But beginning with the pillars, as you mentioned, the book is founded on 3 pillars: activate, amplify, and accelerate. So the activate pillar has an internally focused lens. It's introspective for women to activate and to look at their self-awareness, their values, their strengths, and their inner champion, quieting their inner critic and turning up the volume on their inner champion. So activate begins with self, right? And that introspection of who I am, who I desire to be. Then amplify has an external view to it. It's about executive presence. It's about seizing opportunities for oneself, going after opportunities, creating opportunities, heightening and amplifying other women, showcasing their talents, their abilities, speaking up for them. It has an external view. And then the accelerate pillar, it's the kind of the big picture aspirational view that's the organizational lens that speaks toward the responsibilities and the partnership really that organizations really need to engage in to leverage and to support women's leadership. And the accelerate pillar talks about concepts such as addressing burnout, providing equal pay, providing sponsorships, and also flexible work environments. So those are the three pillars of collaborative confidence. And then you mentioned two stories, the Obama administration and the Girl Scout example. And these really represent that idea, and coming from the amplify pillar, of women amplifying, showcasing other women. So with the Obama example, so in his first administration, the vast majority of his cabinet leaders and senior leaders were men.
Right.
And the women who were at the same level were finding things that I think every professional, not even professional woman, just every woman experiences. In meetings, they were being talked on top of. They give an idea, and 2 minutes later, Joe says the same idea, and suddenly it's Joe's credit for that idea. And so they were being outvoiced, outspoken, in meetings. And on top of that, they weren't even included in certain meetings. So the women got together behind the scenes and they came up with something that they called amplification. And I want to give full credit that this story really inspired the entire amplify pillar of collaborative confidence. So I give a lot of credit to these women in the Obama administration that I don't even know, but it's such a powerful story. So they called it amplification. And what they just naturally started to do is that in meetings, they would repeat what another woman said. Or Pearl, if you got interrupted, I would say, oh, I'd like to go back to Pearl because she didn't quite get to finish what she wanted to say. Or if you gave an idea, I made sure to give credit back to you. So they just started doing this in meetings and continued to do it and did it consistently. And here's where the real magic happens, because President Obama noticed it himself. And then he changed his own behaviors. So here's where we start to get into how organizations can change. He's the leader at the very highest level. Right. So he started, asking women directly, what is your opinion? What do you think? What do you want? He initiated making sure women's voices were heard in meetings. He also started inviting junior level aides or other level aides. At least he started inviting them to at least some meetings. So individuals who normally wouldn't be included in certain meetings were now being included in certain meetings. So their professional development, their perspective was now expanded because they were part of conversations and decisions and strategies that they normally weren't. Then we fast forward to his second administration, and even more magic happens there, because we see gender parity across his senior cabinet level members. And we also see women leading at the highest levels of federal government. We see a woman leading the National Security Council, and we see a woman who's leading the Legislative Affairs federal department within the government. So that's the amplification strategy that the Obama women engaged in, and the ripple effect that came from it. And as I said, it really inspired.
It's a serious ripple effect. That's amazing. What a shift.
What a shift, and how simple it is to do something like that. Literally, any of your listeners in their very next meeting, their very next Zoom call, they can begin to pay attention to when a woman is interrupted or when a woman's idea is not given credit back to her. They can notice when a woman is quiet and ask for her, what's your thought on this? So it's something that actually is quite simple. It takes intention.
But it's very simple. It's very simple.
Exactly. It's not difficult to do.
What about if you can share a little bit of the Girl Scout story as well?
When I first read this story and learned, I cried. It teared me up. It's such a beautiful story. So there was a Girl Scout named Alice Tapper, who at the time she was 11 years old. Now I think she's about 18 years old or so. And Alice went on a school field trip with her elementary, junior high, whatever grade she was in at age 11. Anyway, she went on a school field trip. And she noticed during this field trip that when the teacher asked a question, all the boys were, raising their hand and raising their hand and raising their hand. And the girls were like in the back of the room, not raising their hands. Again, I think something very relatable for every woman. It's certainly for me. So she talks to her mom about this, and then she ends up talking to her own Girl Scout troop about this. And her Girl Scout troop members say, yeah, the same thing happens in our classes, or I see that all the time between boys and girls. Then Alice goes to the CEO of her Girl Scout territory, district, whatever the correct term is. And out of that, a Girl Scout patch gets created. So Alice created a patch, and it is called the Raise Your Hand patch. It is a real patch that Girl Scouts have to earn. It's not just given. And the patch is earned by pledging to raise your hand in class or wherever to say something, and pledging to encourage 3 other little girls to also raise their hand.
I love this. What
Yeah.
a powerful story.
Yeah.
And I mean, just from the perspective of a little girl, that she realized this and wanted to make that shift also.
Exactly. Yes.
That's a great story. Hopefully we can all learn from these stories to do the same, because it's very simple. Now let's talk about the negative spiral, because we all do this. I know I do it, that internal dialogue that we have with ourselves, where we're constantly putting ourselves down. This is when we go down that like rabbit hole of self-doubt and criticism. It's the internal dialogue we have with ourselves that just leads us to negativity and blame. And then it's very hard to escape. So what technique as a coach do you use with your clients to get them out of this negative spiral?
Sure. Yeah. And yes, very common, universal. I have it. We all have it. These, the negative spiral or the inner critic, whatever term, suits you. So I think the first step in that is to raise your awareness, because that tape can be playing in your head and you're not even aware of it. And maybe once you are aware of it, you're so down the spiral, you feel even worse than you would have had you caught it earlier. So the first thing I coach my clients on is paying attention to that inner dialogue and what is it saying to you. And a specific technique that I have used with clients before is in a coaching conversation, I will say, okay, get out a piece of paper and I want you to do some quiet writing for the next 2 minutes. Think about what time you woke up this morning, say 7:30, and it's now 10 o'clock in the morning. From 7:30 until 10 o'clock, what were all the negative thoughts you thought about yourself? And just start writing those down and writing those down and writing those down. And they can range everything from, oh, I overslept by 5 minutes, or my hair doesn't look so good, or I'm not prepared for this meeting, or I should have said it different in this meeting. The point is when you have somebody, and I coach a lot of women. So when you have a woman, take a few moments and literally just write down all the negative thoughts they've had in that day alone. It can be really shocking. Exactly. A lot. It can be shocking. And that raises your awareness. So I think that is a first good step. And then a step after that is to now pay attention to every time a negative self-thought comes up and to literally stop that thought. So to catch yourself in the crime, right? And to literally stop that thought. So when you think, oh, I should have said it different in that meeting, literally stop the thought and give yourself credit that you did say what needed to be said, or you said it well, or you said it good enough. And what happens in the brain when you stop thoughts and you do it repeatedly, consistently over and over and over again, it changes your brain chemistry, and it breaks those neurons that have been fired together. They say what fires together wires together.
Yes.
So the more repeated negative thoughts you have, it wires that in your brain. So you can, and the good news is you can undo that wiring. And one of the ways you can do that is by literally stopping that thought. And then think about anything else. Think about something good you did that day. Think about something positive. You can even look out the window and admire the blue sky or the rain or whatever is outside. So the point is not necessarily what the other thought is, but the point is to stop the negative thought and replace it with either something positive or something neutral.
I feel like that's why a lot of times you see people that are really negative, they're always negative because that's how they've trained their brain and they don't know any other pathways, right? So if we can break that cycle and find a different route, then we can change that pathway. But it's like you will have people that that it's like everything is a negative thought and constantly, it's like it just gives you just such bad energy, right?
Absolutely. It does. So if we can break that cycle, break that chemistry in the brain, it helps to elevate you out of that negative spiral.
That's very true. Now, you've already talked about, you pointed out about self-awareness, but if you can explain, because I know there is external and then there's internal, if you can explain the difference between those two type of self-awareness that we have.
Sure. Yeah. So in the book, I talk about self-awareness from those two angles that you just mentioned, about being internally self-aware and then raising your awareness externally, how other people view you. So with the internal self-awareness, I encourage clients to focus on three things: their thoughts, their feelings, and their physical sensations. And I'll just jump to the physical sensations for a moment, because I think our bodies are so full of wisdom. I mean, incredible wisdom. And we miss so much that our bodies tell us, so many signals, me included. I am absolutely work in progress. But if we tune into our physical sensations, they are a signal to us. They can tell us, oh, you're feeling nervous. And now if you know you're feeling nervous, you can actually do something about feeling nervous. So if your nervousness shows up on, your body, your belly tightens, or you feel flushed. Okay, you've tuned into a physical sensation. What is the thought that you're having? Oh, I'm nervous about this presentation I'm about to give. Okay, now you're aware of the thought that you have, and the feeling comes with the physical sensation. I feel nervous. With those three pieces of information, you can actually now do something, and you're raising your self-awareness, and you can do something to calm those messages and the nervousness down. And one of my favorite techniques is the breath. So just breathe into that tension in the belly or the flush sensation. Just breathe into that, take some long, deep breaths. And it's pretty magical. You'll notice that your physical sensation is quiet. Exactly. Your thoughts change. And also that feeling of nervousness also tempers and changes. Thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations, in a combination of all three, that is the most magical and the most powerful. And if you tune into even just one of them and adjust them, you can raise your self-awareness.
Which is key. I found a statistics in your book very significant, where you said that there was 486 publicly traded companies that were analyzed. And it was found that companies with a greater percentage of self-aware employee were constantly outperforming those with the lower percentage, which makes such good significant sense. Because if you think about it, I mean, if we are working together and we have compassion for the person next to us, or we realize, oh, I made a mean comment, or I was rude, what did I do? Or I'm trying to compete instead of collaborating and working with this person. Mm-hmm. It just really makes a shift, and you really understand what you're doing, and you're aware that you're not doing what you're supposed to do to make the work environment a happier environment.
Yes. Right. Exactly. A happier environment and a more productive work environment. Yes. And I think sometimes those quote unquote soft skills like self-awareness are not given the credit, as you are pointing out, as they really deserve. Because if I'm self-aware enough to realize, ooh, I interrupt Pearl a lot, so I'm going to be really conscious to not do that. Or, oh, I forgot to invite Pearl to that meeting and she really should be included. I'm going to start paying attention
and realize that or sometimes there's like this sarcasm, like people don't realize that they think they're being funny. And then you realize, oh, okay, maybe the way that I'm speaking is not really being respectful, but I'm trying to be funny. So it's just these little tiny things and then people take it personally, and it changes the entire work environment, home environment, whatever it might be.
Yes, exactly.
Very good. So the other thing that you talked about earlier was the inner champion, that we need to find that and put that in charge. Who is our inner champion? How can we find that inner champion in us?
Yes. So our inner champion is the opposite of that committee of critics. And I know I have a committee of critics, and
I think we all do.
I think we all do. Yes. Thank you. I'm glad I'm not the only one who has all.
No.
So our inner champion is that true essence of who we are at our best, at our most natural, at our most authentic. And the committee of critics try to fool us otherwise, and try to keep, they want to be center stage and not the true inner champion who we are. So the first step is quieting those critics. And that relates back to some of the things we've already talked about,
Being
self-awareness.
aware, self-aware.
Exactly. Being aware of those messages of, oh, you can't do this, or you're not ready, or other people are more accomplished than you, or if you speak up, you might say something dumb, so don't speak up at all in this meeting. So or the other parts of our critics, you make a mistake and just get berated and berated and berated by our committee critics. Oh, why did you should have known better, etc. So the first is to just start to pay attention to the inner critics, and then quiet them. And one of the most effective ways of quieting the inner critic, in order for your inner champion to be seen, is using your 5 senses. So using your sense of touch, taste, hearing, sight. And I always forget one of the senses when I try to rattle off all 5. So
did you say taste or
taste, scent, sight, and touch? There we go.
Yeah.
For instance, your sense of touch. This is a technique that I describe in the book, and we can even do it together here. So you can take a finger and a thumb.
Okay.
Just very gently rub your finger and thumb together and tune into and really notice the ridges of your finger and your thumb sliding back and forth to each other. So just pay attention to all the sensations, the temperature, the ridges, every sensation associated with gently rubbing your thumb and your finger together. And then you can use both of your hands and slide both of your hands back and forth. Again, all the nooks and crannies, to pay attention to all the sensations. What this is doing, and you only need to do it for 30 seconds, but when you tune into a physical sensation, in this case, touch, what you're doing is you're quieting the amygdala in your brain, the fight, flight, or freeze, which is where your critics live. And you're opening up the prefrontal cortex, the executive thinking of your brain. And that's where your inner champion lives, where you're able to think more clearly and be more resourceful and feel more confident and feel more authentic of who you are. So when you engage in the use of paying attention, and that's really key. It's not just rubbing your hands for the sake of rubbing your hands.
Right. But you're paying attention to all the sensations.
It quiets those critics, and it gives an opportunity for your champion to be present and for you to put your focus on what your champion thinks, wants, desires, encourages you to do.
I love that. I immediately, when you did it and I did it, I just felt like a strong connection to just like being focused more and realizing what's happening. What a great technique. And it's so simple. You can do it anywhere.
Absolutely. You can do it in a meeting and nobody's going to know. If you're on video, you can just drop your hand below video. And even if you do it above video, people are not going to.
No one's going to know exactly what's happening. You're right. I mean, it's amazing. The other thing that we had talked about is you mentioned knowing our own personal strength. I know we need to know our values. We need to know our personal strength. And another key factor which is a huge key factor to our sexist, but how can we find, like, sometimes people don't know what they're good at or what their main strengths are. How can we go about finding this personal strength?
Yes. And it's a great question. And for me, it's been a lifelong journey and will continue, to be, I think, a lifelong journey to always to consistently recognize my strengths. Sometimes other people have to point them out to you before you see them in yourself. So a couple of places to point your listeners. One is to pay attention to the activities that drain you and the activities that energize you. And you can keep a tablet or a piece of paper on your desk. And as the day goes by, have 2 columns, and one is energizing and one is depleting. And so just jot down, okay, this activity drains me, this activity energizes me. And if you do that for about a week or so, then you'll have this wonderful list, and it really points you to your strengths, because the activities that energize you, those are strengths-based. Whereas the activities that drain you, you may be really good. You might be really effective performing those activities, but they're not your strengths.
That's our skill, right?
It can be more of a skill. And I'll even take it a step further by illustrating an example. So I'm an adjunct university professor with the University of Redlands, and I enjoy being in front of the classroom and speaking and engaging with the students and getting them into dialogue and exercises and so forth. And I also have to grade papers. And I believe I'm really good at grading papers. And I know I give good feedback. And I know that because my students have told me how the feedback helps them. And yet when I grade papers, it drains me. So I'm good at it and it drains me. So it's not a strength of mine. Sometimes things that drain us, it is a skill, and sometimes things that drain us, it's not a skill, and we really aren't good at them, and it just simply drains us. Creating a list of energizing and depleting activities is one way a person can start to understand their strengths. Another, when you do something that is so simple, it like took no effort on your part whatsoever, and people say, "Oh my gosh, that was amazing what you did." And you look at them, you're like, I don't know, it was like so easy. That's a sign that what you just did was a strength of yours because it comes so naturally.
Easily. Or the time goes by really quickly and you don't even realize it. You're not watching and staring at the clock.
Exactly.
And I think for our listeners, I mean, if sometimes it's still difficult for some of us to figure it out, I mean, you can always ask your friends or ask your spouse, because sometimes getting the other person's perspective, because sometimes we're good at things and we just don't even realize it. But when someone else tells us and you think, oh my gosh, she's right. I actually do have this strength. I never realized I have this. It's a really good way to kind of find that out by also shifting and asking somebody else to understand their perspective.
Exactly. It's like that, the fish that doesn't even notice the water they're in, right? And it goes back to your earlier question about external awareness. That's where somebody else is helping you
become aware.
Become aware and know your strengths that you don't even recognize. But I love that idea, Pearl, to ask other people.
So now how can women in the business world create an executive presence of leadership so that they can advance in their profession? Because I know in your book, you had a whole section about that, which was very profound.
So yes, executive presence is something that, whether you're male or female, really helps propel you forward and helps you be seen in a way as a capable, competent leader. So in the book, I describe executive presence as having three prongs, if you will, or three pieces. One is authentically showing up. Another is confidently presenting yourself. And the third piece is genuinely connecting. So connecting with other people. So authentically showing up. And I coach my clients on authenticity all the time because I never be real. Exactly, Pearl. Exactly. I never want somebody to put on a false face or not be true to who they are.
And I feel like people make such better connection when people are authentic.
Exactly.
You immediately, like if I'm going to buy something, if I want to listen to some conference, or if I really feel like that person on stage is being so real and just telling their story in an authentic way and not just standing there trying to sell me something, right. There's a much higher chance of me buying that program or getting that book versus if I feel like there's a lot of fakeness to them and they're not being authentic.
Right, exactly, because they've engendered trust with you, right?
Yes.
And when we trust somebody and someone is real with us, we're more apt to follow them or to be aligned with them or to emulate them. Yes, absolutely. Then when we smell something fishy. So that for me, as I write in the book, the first place is about being authentic and showing up in an authentic, real, genuine way. And then I also write about confidently presenting yourself. And that means communicating effectively. It means focusing in on an executive presence. They talk a lot about gravitas. So stepping into that gravitas of the weight, that you carry, not your physical weight, but, the weight of your position and believing
your
that
presence, right.
Exactly. And then what you were saying just a moment ago about genuinely connecting, like being real with that other person and genuinely connect through being approachable, being empathetic when people are going through tough times, and also expressing appreciation. So you can genuinely connect by acknowledging someone else and genuinely expressing your appreciation for a job well done or how they helped out with something, how they made something better, and making sure that they really know that you acknowledge that, you recognize it, and you appreciate it.
That's great. I love that. To enhance our impact and create a meaningful difference in our work, it's essential to identify our core values and strengths. By nourishing our souls, embracing our core values, and harnessing our strengths, just like you said, we can make an authentic impact. However, it's crucial to silence that negative voice we all have that often clouds our perceptions, decisions, actions, and ambition. Based on our conversation today with you and your insightful book, we can conclude that collaborative confidence empowers women to translate self-awareness into meaningful action. This approach amplifies leadership, confidence, and maximizes our impact. It guides us to deepen our self-awareness, aligns our work and life with our values, showcases our unique skills and talents, and recognizes and supports the capabilities of other women. Dr. Backstrom emphasizes that every one of us is a strong, capable, and talented leader, and it's crucial to nurture our own remarkable abilities while encouraging other women to do the same. Is there anything else you would like to share with us today, Dr. Backstrom?
My goodness, Pearl, this has been an amazing conversation. I feel so energized by speaking with you.
I love it. Me too.
Wonderful, wonderful. I guess I'd leave your listeners with just how can I immediately engage in collaborative confidence? How can I amplify another woman? How can I take the story of the Girl Scouts and raise my hand myself and encourage other women to raise their hand? How can I amplify another woman by bringing her along to a meeting or a professional association, recommending her for a promotion or a stretch assignment? So I think that's what I would leave your listeners with, is heightening their awareness around what is at the heart and center of collaborative confidence.
Yes.
I am responsible for my own confidence, and I'm responsible for the confidence of other women. And look for ways every single day to do that.
I love all those questions. And I feel like those are such better questions to have an internal dialogue with ourselves instead of that negative dialogue that we intend to have. These questions can instead shift us and make us more confident. So we can do that collaboration. Now, how can others find more information about you, and how can they order your amazing book?
Thank you. And thank you. Amazing book. I feel so honored. So my website is simply heatherbackstrom.com, and Backstrom is spelled Backstrom. I also welcome all of your listeners to connect with me on LinkedIn. So please send me an invitation. And as far as purchasing Collaborative Confidence, it can be found on all of your online booksellers, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple Play. Is that what it's called? I don't.
Yeah, I think so.
I like a physical book. So, but wherever you would normally buy a book, you can find either the ebook or the physical book on any of those.
Audible. You have Audible or
Audio's not out, not yet. Audible is not out, so it's an ebook or it's the physical book.
But I'm like you. I like the physical book better. So,
I guess I'm old fashioned that way.
Me too. So this is wonderful. We will share all the links in our show notes. Thank you so much. It's truly been a privilege to have you. Thank you so much for being on my show.
It's a wonderful conversation. I so appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for tuning in today to Female Fluence. Together we can influence and motivate other mind-like females. Your job is to feel alive, be in control, and always be true to your own self. Please don't forget to subscribe so you can continue feeling inspired. All the links and notes from this episode will be posted on my website, femalefluence.com. Don't forget to also follow me at Female Fluence on both Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, if you are in need of a woman empowerment life coach to help you identify the barriers that keep you from living the life you seek, please send an email to info@femalefluence.org. Remember, my friends, don't just exist, but live your life to the fullest. I'm your host, Pearl Mashur. Until we talk next time.